Give us a countdown. Let's see what time we got. Good? All right. All right, good evening, Litchfield. Welcome to the Thursday, June 1st Conservation Commission meeting. Call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. Let's all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good. Ms. Plansky, could you take us through the roll call?
Matt Hoffman.
Here.
Harry Sigmund.
Here.
Diane Plansky's president. Jason Brennan.
Here.
Joe McGibbon. Here. And Fred French.
Here.
All right,
Missing
so.
tonight are Kevin Lynch and Michael.
Yep, Mr. Croto is not going to be here tonight, so Fred, you want to take a
Yes.
voting roll?
Okay.
All right.
Did you hear from Mr. Lynch?
I did not hear from Mr. Lynch.
Okay.
All right. It's roll call. Public input related to non-agenda items. Anybody here to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? We've got two items on the agenda. One, 255 Derry Road, and the second, we have development off of Pearson Street. Someone's here for that. All right. So open public input, and I'll close public input. New business, wetlands exception request, 255 Derry Road development. Rose Meadows.
Okay.
So before we jump into it, just to give a recap, so we did a site walk of this site a few weeks ago. We've got the plans in, they're up on the portal, and it's presented here tonight. We got all the other paperwork in as well. Our job here tonight is to review the plan, take a look at it from the wetlands perspective, and then provide input to the zoning board and the planning board on any comments we have related to the plan. So for folks in the audience, we cannot vote a plan up or down. It's not the order of this commission. We're only a advisory board, so we provide input to other boards based on what we see on the plan. You want to introduce yourself?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a professional engineer with Hayner Swanson, doing business at 3 Congress Street in Nashua, New Hampshire, tonight representing 255 Dairy Road LLC, the owner of which is Rick Charbonneau, who's also here with me this evening. And as the chairman just aptly said, we're here seeking your recommendation for a proposed ZBA application for wetland and buffer impacts upon a subject property. But also, Mr. Chairman, we've asked and made a request for a New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services wetlands permit, and quite often they seek your input as well. And you're right, on April 29, we walked the site. Most of the commissioners were in attendance at that site walk. What I'm going to try to do for those who weren't there is give a brief overview of the project and the submitted materials, and then answer any questions. I'll do my best, and I'm sure if I can't answer them, Rick will be able to help me out. You know, as background, this is a site that BAE has occupied since late 1978 as an R&D facility. And as we saw on site, there are several buildings and inflatable domes on the property. BAE has plans to move out of this facility, and Rick purchased this site in 2002. The address is 255 Dairy Road. It is map 2, lot 8 in your assessor's map. And it's a total of 90 acres in size, of which 10 acres exist in Hudson. The Hudson piece is way over on the eastern side and does not have any frontage on any of the local Hudson roads. The zone in town is the Highway Commercial District, but it also contains the multifamily overlay district. Now the property is abutted by several commercial properties to the north, Lobster Boat, Irwin Marine, to the west, Dairy Road. To the east, several commercial facilities in Hudson. And then along the southerly edge, a combination of single-family homes, but also some of the state of New Hampshire land here. I think they purchased as part of the circumferential many, many decades ago. As you saw, when you walk the site, it's a partially wooded site with open fields. You can see the aerial quite well there with the openness and the wooded areas. The topography was fairly slight for the most part of the site. Elevation did rise as you worked in the southerly direction, but for the most part, the majority of the site is relatively flat. With regards to wetlands, we had the site completely mapped by Gove Environmental Services in accordance with the jurisdictional criteria for wetland mapping. We really have two wetland complexes. The first is on the east part of the site. Hi. Do you want me to start over?
No,
All right, let
Just
the,
kidding.
I did.
Diane, yeah, just
Yeah,
let
got
the
it.
record show Kevin is
Kevin
here.
Lynch has arrived.
Good evening, Mr. Lynch. So we have two complexes. Over on the east side, we have a perennial stream that runs in a northerly direction. And then this complex on the southerly part of the site and the eastern part of the site is a combination of a watercourse and associated wetlands. That also flows off-site. Both cross Dairy Road, and further to the west, they converge and eventually turn into, I think it's Chase Brook in town. There are no vernal pools on the property. What's being proposed is to construct a 172-unit multifamily residential development. In deciding how to develop the property, Rick really had several goals in mind. He wanted to pattern this development after the Calawa Circle project, which was done maybe 8 to 10 years ago, both in terms of layout and architecture. This is a larger piece of property, so we were able to create smaller little clusters off some of the main roads in the project. And we think that particular approach and that layout worked well because the majority of all the work is really in the uplands that are kind of bisected by some of these wetlands, and that'll become evident as we go through the project. Access is off 102. We've got private roads, private utilities, individual septics for the buildings. In Hudson, we're hoping to gain access through our private roads, and this will become a nice area for the residents here. We've got a fenced-in open storage area in case a resident needs a boat or a snowmobile. They'll have somewhere to store that on site. And then several small mini storage, self-storage units back here. Again, all this work in Hudson solely for the residents of this development. With regard to stormwater, our design package includes a number of stormwater management areas throughout the project. We're using very different combinations of infiltration trenches, leaching catch basins, infiltration basins. We're constructing wetlands. We're constructing a pond located in this location here as well as here. In many of these edges, we're planting with some naturalized materials, witch hazel, winterberry, high bush blueberry, just something to naturalize the edges and give it kind of a softer feel to it rather than the golf course pond, which is hard to mow grass. With regard to wetland impacts, we have 3 wetland impacts, and I think if you were on the site walk, we identified those. Those are in green on the screen. And if you're at the site walk, we actually walked right out to those areas. The first is a rather small one, 125 square feet. There's an existing culvert under the BAE driveway. We're ripping that out, and we're just improving the discharge side. And there's about 125 square feet of impact, very small. Impact area B is the crossing of the perennial stream. That's probably, the most critical of the crossings. Because it is deemed a Tier 1 stream in the state of New Hampshire, it carries with it a little bit more sensitivity in terms of its crossing. And what we're proposing there, Mr. Chairman, is an open bottom box culvert, 6 by 12. and the roadway will exist and go over that box culvert in that location. So that open bottom kind of keeps that stream bed in its more naturalized condition rather than hard piping the crossing. That impact in that area totals about 2,380 square feet.
Can you show me, is that area right there I'm looking at right there?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what I thought, thank you.
And again, well, I'll jump to that in a second. The third crossing, wetland crossing C, is here. It is crossing this wetland complex to gain access to this upland in the back. It's replacing an old culvert about 100 feet downstream that's rather old and dated. This is your more traditional crossing. This is not really a perennial stream. It's more of a water course through the wetland. And that will be with a solid 18-inch culvert and that prism of fill with the road on top. We're using 3-to-1 side slopes on all these to minimize the impact. So in total, Mr. Chairman, we have 9,140 square feet of wetland impact. Now, the whole site has about 17 acres of wetland. And so when you take what we're impacting and divide it by what we have for total, it's about 1.2% of the site. So all three crossings are for utilities and roads. We're not proposing to fill wetlands to get greater density or more units. It's really to gain access to the various parts of the site. Buffer impacts, as you know, there's several buffers in town for septic, for building, and for no disturb. The 50-foot no disturb areas are highlighted in yellow, and there are 11 of them. And most of them are associated, like there's 3 of them associated with this crossing, there's 2 associated with this crossing, there's 1 associated with this crossing. Most of those are in areas that are previously disturbed. The open field we walked down was actually in buffer. In a large part, those areas are not being paved, they're just being impacted as construction and will return back being loamed and seeded in a more naturalized manner. Overall, the project will have about 84% open space. There is, Mr. Chairman, an area on the east part of the site associated with that stream that is located on the FEMA flood maps as Zone A. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with flood mapping, but Zone A is an area that, well, they think it might be prone to flooding, but we've never studied it. More traditional floodplain is designated Zone AE, and the floodway is that carrying channel of rivers and streams that you're really not allowed to impact.
Is that based on a 100-year flood map, or?
Yes, yeah, 100-year floodplain. So it's an approximation, and you can see on the overlay of the town map to our map, they line up
right
exactly.
That's the 100-year
Okay.
floodplain
Yeah.
right there.
So when we said, well, we have to cross that to get to Hudson, we started scouring through the Litchfield zoning regs, and the zoning regs say in order to work within that area, you're allowed to work with that in that area, but you need to show us that you're not going to adversely affect anybody downstream. If you pan back, Mr. Chairman, on that screen, if you zoom out just a smidge, they want to make sure that what we do in this crossing doesn't contribute or raise the base flood further downstream. So I'm not qualified to do that work, so Rick hired a consulting firm that specializes in it, H.L. Turner Group out of Concord. And it was a late arriving report, but I submitted it to Joan. I don't know if she distributed it, but I'd just like to read how they conclude, because they studied our plan and they looked at it, and essentially they concluded that the proposed improvements and the crossing here do not encroach on the floodplain of the downstream water course and have no impact on the base flood elevation, which is really what we want. I'm just wrapping up, Mr. Chairman, in case you're wondering. Construction, hope to begin construction. We have some additional permits to go, but hope to begin this fall. It's probably a 4-year build out. This is not a project that's going to happen right away. Next step for us, as I mentioned, would be ZBA for the special exception for this wetland and flood work, and then we go to planning. So in summary, we think we tried to be respectful of the wetlands and the buffers on the site with the layout. Our impacts are really limited to roadway and utility crossings. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Rick or I'm happy to answer any questions.
For the actual tree clearing, it looks like it's actually pretty minimal on the Litchfield side, but there'll be some impact on Hudson, is that?
Yeah, Hudson measures about 10 acres, and, so we're probably working about 7 of the 10 acres, and that's wetland to the north as well. And they also have a 50-foot buffer, and we're not touching anything in that location there. And you're correct, we're like, if you were able to walk the site, this is mostly an open area here. This is mostly an open area here, and this area, I think, does cross back and does open up a little bit in the back, so.
It's mostly just pines,
Pardon?
mostly just pine trees.
Mostly pines, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the buffer impacts up in here?
Sure.
Because I took some measurements just to make sure that the buildings weren't within the buffer, but can you tell us what the buffer impacts?
Yeah, so several of those buffer impacts, Mr. Chairman, are associated.
I'll kind of zoom in there.
That's probably the best view. A number of them impact area K, L, and J are associated with outfalls to some of our stormwater practices.
Okay.
We like to convey, when we have a stormwater practice or a basin, we like to convey it to the wetland so that in a lower elevation, so it doesn't cause erosion over time. And so it's really limited to them. You can see of those buffers, the only tree clearing we would have is a little bit of L and J. If you pan out just slightly, that larger impacts associated with the entrance drive coming in impact area A as well as B, and that is already a disturbed buffer. If that was the roadway, and what Rick wanted to do there is maintain that road. We're gonna have to rebuild the road, but he's gonna line it with some boulders to kind of really serve as that visual barrier between development and those wetland areas. So, and then lastly on A, that little eye drop loop there is for buses, for school pickup, as well as a community mailbox there. And there's a stormwater outlet, small stormwater outlet next to 102. So I hope I answered your question.
You did, and for the folks on the commission, just to get the colors straight here, so the yellow hash marks are impacts to the wetland buffers, and then the green are impact to the wetlands themselves, correct?
Correct.
Anybody have any questions?
The site walk was really good.
Yeah.
That was a good site walk. I felt
Yeah.
like I walked away from there understanding the project pretty well.
Well, thank you. We did it a little backwards. Usually we're in here first and then we go out, but it worked out well. And so now we're able to kind of see the plans and some of the adjustments. that
Sorry,
were
I'm
made.
zooming around here a little bit, but for the folks that weren't on the site walk, I think it was just Fred, but just to kind of give you an eyeball, and Kevin. So you see the property there in yellow. You drive by this on 102, and the build out, as I kind of like faded in, is mostly in the already cleared areas. And a lot of the impacts are existing conditions now. There's actually roads in there right now. And so I felt that they did a pretty good job trying to keep to what was there and,
Yeah, I
and
felt that
staying
way
out
too.
of.
I just want to say, I did go out there this weekend. When I could go, I couldn't go with the group, but I went out and walked it, like, the nature walk, okay? And he's staying within the footprint of what's there, which is nice.
Joan, before, I know you probably have a list of questions.
No, I know, but go ahead.
Regarding the FEMA floodplain from the Turner Group, I think you said it was, is that, I haven't seen that, but is that something that's stamped?
It's on,
Yeah, it's signed by professional engineers.
Okay, that's what I wanted
Yeah.
to know. Okay.
I got as far as, they said there was no impact to in the report, no impact on the
Yep. Minimal to nothing.
Go around the table, Joan.
So on, one with the box culvert, that's area
B.
B. So I'm assuming that you picked the least intrusive area to go,
Right there.
that you,
Pretty narrow, yeah,
Yeah.
right there.
we did look at that site when we were out there.
Mhm.
How much fill, I think we talked about how much fill on either side would you need?
So that grade comes up, the road surface compared to where we're at today is about 6 feet higher, because you need room to get that box culvert in, so. And of course, the culvert allows that perennial stream during peak periods to flow through. It also is a good wildlife corridor there as well. Yeah, and that's, I use the word a prism of fill, you know, because a prism has kind of a narrower top and a wider base, and that's kind of what's happening there. The difference between that and the other crossing is we're doing a bigger open box culvert versus an 18-inch culvert on the other crossing.
It makes sense because it's a slow flow going through this. You want it to go right through it without disturbing anything. And box culvert, like Joe's saying, without a bottom, it works better because you get a natural terrain underneath it,
Right.
okay? And you can get the beavers later. But it works better.
Joan, did you have more?
I'm just wondering about, we have these wetland decals, but I'm just wondering how you would do that on the buffer areas. They're about this big, and they say wetland, what they say, do not disturb, something like that, wetland buffer. You know, near the buildings, it might be good, but I don't know how you would attach them to anything. There's no, like, I'm looking at that,
Okay.
so that we route there.
Put them on a post.
So you're saying, Joan, is that,
And, you know, if
that
you
would
put-
be a lot of them.
It would be a lot, and if you put them one place, then I guess you would have to put them everywhere, which that probably wouldn't be that good of an idea.
To essentially mark off where the 50-foot non-disturb is?
Yeah,
But we'll be the only ones doing the maintenance, so we'll be mowing it, it's not like.
and that's the only thing I was thinking of, grass clippings and leaves shouldn't be thrown into that area.
Right, but we're gonna be doing it ourselves
Okay.
when we pick it up. and it's
Okay.
not- So there's not anybody else, or not homeowner,
Yeah,
or anything, it's private. So
okay.
Everybody who lives there is not gonna mow lawn.
One of the benefits of,
Lucky ones.
I'm
And
sorry,
even if it
I'm
was
all
ever turned into a condo association 50 years down the road, it still would be done the same way. that they
Same
hire
rules.
someone to maintain it.
Okay.
I'm good.
Kevin?
I took a walk through, basically what I've seen very the minimal wetlands. Effects that has not already been done when Sanders was there. And with the areas, I like the idea of the bottomless culvert that makes it flow better through the whole system and allow more water through it as the major rain. I'm not seeing anything wrong. The only thing I'm concerned about is the second means to get in and out of there, but that's something that nothing to do with us,
Right.
Right.
okay?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, since it was asked, Rick has negotiated a gated access to the north here with this property, the Lobster Boat property, for second means for life safety. That's something when we met with the fire department, that was kind of their first question, so,
Imagine it was.
good question, yeah. So we think we've got a pretty good solution.
Case closed.
So those are comments that we can put down in the letter to the planning board, just as for informational purposes.
Correct.
Right.
All in all, the buffer setbacks are minimal out there, in all.
Anybody, Harry, anything? I'm gonna open up for public comment. Anybody have any comments on this development right here? Hearing none, I'll close public comment. So as a, make sure, anybody else have any questions? I had a couple of small ones, so can you just tell us a little bit about the tree clearing? Seems like it's gonna be pretty minimal.
I actually liked your graphic, Mr. Chairman, as you faded out.
Yeah.
That picture is actually really good.
Yeah,
I think I incorrectly spoke. If you can pan out just a smidgen. Yeah, I think I incorrectly spoke. That lower cluster of 12 units here is probably the only area that we're getting into that needs to be cleared.
You can see it right here.
Yeah, significantly cleared. That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The others you can see play out pretty well on the clearings, and then with the exception of Hudson, getting into Hudson, yes.
Actually, it looks like Hudson's cleared where you're gonna put the stuff anyways besides the access.
It's got the fields back there.
Have you,
Part of it is clear because the neighbor encroached and dumped a whole bunch of junk.
You made him pick it up, though.
have you gone to Hudson yet? Have you started that process?
No, it is part of the process. We've, I shouldn't say no, we've approached them with a letter of determination about these uses. Are they allowed in their zone? I just recently got a response saying, yes, they're allowed. But we will need to go to planning board. It's quite common when you have a plot property in split towns, you have to go to both boards.
Goofy question, are you gonna try to save those stone walls as much as you can?
Yeah.
There's a couple of stone walls in there.
Yeah, yeah,
Many of
I
those in
remember 'em.
Litchfield. They kind of give you some
I
character.
thought that was kind of a statement.
And we're really sure that BAE hasn't dumped any chemicals or anything like that in that land. We're really sure about that.
Well, it wouldn't be our
And
liability.
then, so when BAE bought it in 2000 or 2002 is when BAE bought it.
Yeah.
They did a level 1 inspection. And just for them to have a can of paint, what they had to give me is like, it's over the top.
Okay.
They're, no.
You're comfortable.
There's always just,
Is there a soil
my
testing
father
or
worked
anything
at
that's
Sanders.
involved
It was
with
just a testing site.
I
didn't-
know, but what are
oh,
they
with the
testing?
level one.
What was
Do they
remaining
go
from
inside?
it?
Surveillance systems. It's
Yeah,
weird.
I'm just asking, are you required to do anything before?
No, I didn't, no. I went with their level 1 from 2002, or whatever it was.
It looks like it's gonna end up having a nice quality of life for the people that live there, and it leaves a lot of the natural land in place. Like you said, you're building in mostly cleared areas.
Just the paperwork that we're going through right now, because the building there has an air conditioner in it, and a furnace, and it's crazy.
Just 'cause that stuff's there.
Crazy.
I've been in it, it's odd, that's all I can say.
Yeah, it's government contractors.
Yep. It's different.
Okay.
It's
That's what I deal with in
very,
my
No.
world.
very tough specs.
Any thought on, that, again, not related to Conservation Commission, when we were at our site walk, you were thinking of making some of that front part commercial, at least leaving the option for it at some point in time?
We're still doing it. That'll be probably the last unit that we'll build. So if we don't get any interest in, we just put it on the plan, it's there. We can come back, subdivide it out, we have enough frontage if we had to do that.
Okay.
To subdivide it out and make it a commercial lot if something came available, that made sense.
That'd be great.
Do we have any, so I'm gonna entertain a motion, but do we have any bullet items that we want to include in the letter to the zoning board at all?
Based off what I'm seeing right now, he complies, and he's gonna go forth to get the waivers on the buffers and stuff like that. He's in good shape. Okay, I can't go any different than that.
Any, equipment with gasoline or whatever should be parked away from the wetlands on its own path.
You had one at the gas station, which I thought was valuable, it's just to like during construction, just kind of like mark off the wetland so people don't accidentally drive in there, you know, and that.
Good idea.
I don't have any, I mean, as far as
No,
like the
it's-
site goes,
I have nothing.
there's wetlands all over Litchfield, and the impact here is
Minimal. Yeah.
minimal.
So you're entertaining a motion?
Yeah, I'll entertain I'm looking at either of you, so,
I make a motion that we send our approval,
a letter
No,
to
no,
the,
not-
not approval, our
Recommendation.
acceptance, a recommendation that we
Blessings.
accept this.
No. Recommendation that we recommend to the ZBA that we are in agreement with their special exception request.
So that would be Joan's motion.
okay.
Thank you.
Let's time out here for a second. Let's restate, which one of you wants to take it? All right,
Joan's
Joan,
got
go
it.
ahead.
We agree to send the ZBA a letter that we recommend to the zoning board that we are in agreement with their plan dated 15 May for impacts to the wetlands and the buffers.
So typically
For
the
Rose
way,
Meadows.
before you second that, typically the way that I'm wording the letter, just to make sure I can word it in the right way, is I say that the Conservation Commission has met and doesn't have any concerns.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
That's the best way of saying it.
Okay,
Yep, and
Okay.
mention Rose Meadows and 255 Derry Road.
all right. So are there any other little stipulations that we want to include?
I think so.
I have none.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, one thing I would suggest, and I like the direction you're heading in, but I would suggest with regard to wetland buffer impacts and flood zone impacts.
Okay,
Because we have two zoning requests.
Correct.
And flood zone, right. Good point.
okay, so bear with us a second while we get
You have the
our
foot to take care
faculty
of.
straight.
It looks like a foot too, that flood zone.
Joan, you want to restate one more time?
It does.
The main thing is to
Wetlands buffer
mention
impact
special
and
exception.
floodplain impact.
and-
You put boots on it, would be all right.
Should we also mention that they're having the state?
I also just want to make sure that, and I'm sure it is, that the floodplain impact is signed by a professional engineer. I just want to make sure of that. And I think I'm good. So we want to try this again, third time the charm?
Go ahead.
All right.
Read it off.
I make a motion that we send a letter to the zoning board, the planning board, and New Hampshire DES,
Thank you.
stating that we don't have any concerns over the plan at 255 Derry Road in regards to wetlands buffer impact and regard to floodplain
Impact.
impact.
Perfect.
Perfect.
I'm gonna put a stipulation in there, that'll be my motion.
I'll second the motion.
So motion by me, seconded by Kevin.
Do you want to put the stipulation in the motion?
I'm gonna put I'd like to put a stipulation on there,
So
that the wetlands impact, or the floodplain impact signed by a civil engineer, or signed by a professional engineer, haven't seen that yet.
Oh,
And that would be it for me.
okay.
I'll second that too.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You can vote.
Oh, hi.
All those
I didn't, you
opposed?
weren't here, so.
I know, I'm sorry. You missed
All
it.
those abstained, motion carries
7-0.
Wait, can you vote?
2, 4,
Oh, yeah,
6,
Michael
7,
is not
0, 0.
Got it.
You guys are good?
Thank you very much.
Yep. Our next course of action, we'll send out, we'll get that letter out next week.
Great.
We'll send it to all parties. We might need some help with the state contact if we need to send it to the state.
Thank you very much.
Get with Joe.
If this is
Thank you, sir.
backwards, I make a recommendation that we do as much of that as possible. Change that to a first thing, because it really made it much more comfortable
Hey,
to
Rick,
see what you had in
he's
mind.
overdressed.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Rick, I want to say congratulations. You guys pushed that car nicely. Pushed that car
I already
nicely.
congratulated him.
All right, good. Good deal there.
Nice job.
thank you very
Appreciate
much.
that walkthrough, that was good.
Second item on the agenda, proposed development, Pearson Street, off of Pearson Street. Any folks in the audience want to come up, have a discussion on this?
May I hand out something?
So, Joan, can you tell us a little bit about this?
No,
All right. This is, we're assuming that this is for informational purposes only at this point in time, because we didn't have any documentation or anything like that. So we're just here to check it out. And I'm assuming the people in the audience might be for this one too, right?
no, we're just getting.
It's not official yet. We haven't received anything, so,
Planning board hasn't had an application or anything.
so we're just in conceptual phase right now, I'm assuming. Right, floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Doug McGuire. I'm with the Dubé Group, a civil engineering firm out of Londonderry. And I'm here representing the developer and applicant, Signature Homes, Reggie Moreau. And you're exactly correct. We're here really just for initial feedback and to get the process started on this. We have made some initial progress on the property with regards to survey, and so I'll give a little bit of an overview and what we're looking to try to do, and try to get your initial feedback. But essentially, we recognize that the process of moving forward with something like this, we do have some potential wetland impacts for crossings. We know we have wetland impacts because we have delineated wetlands, and so we know that we'll be looking to get a special exception from the zoning board, and we figure our first place to start is with your commission prior to going to them. So what we have here is, thank you, Mr. Chair, for pulling that up. We have two properties, two separate lots, which are going to be proposed to be consolidated as part of this application. It's lots 62 and 64, and both of those lots have frontage on Charles Bancroft Highway, which is on the left-hand side, and they butt up against an existing residential development on Pearson Street, where there's an existing right-of-way, which you can see on the existing conditions plan I have towards the north on the top corner of the page. There's an existing 50-foot right-of-way, and that's our proposal, is to utilize that right-of-way to provide access into the property, mainly because, one, it was there and I think master planned to do such, and also there, as you can see, there's additional larger, more valuable, larger wetlands on the western side, closer to the Charles Bancroft Highway piece. So what we have is lot 62 is 28 acres, 64 is 26 acres, giving us about 55 acres in total for potential development. And as I said, we have done a full boundary survey, topography, wetland delineation, so we have all the facts. We just haven't gotten heavy into the design components at this stage. If you continue through your packet that I dropped off here, through the existing conditions plans, we have a yield plan, which is your standard procedure to start on a lot of this side. We're over the 20 acres, so you'd be looking for us, the town would be looking for us to do an open space development. And the open space development, we start with a yield plan, which is a conventional build subdivision to determine potential density. So we went ahead and did that, and we did put a fair amount of engineering time into that so that was realistic and able to be discussed. So as you can see, we're proposing 24 lots in a conventional build. We have a table up at the top of the page that breaks down all of your requirements regarding a lot yield. Specifically, your minimum buildable, or your minimum acreage, your minimum contiguous dry acreage, your required building envelope, which has to be excluding wetlands, buffers, setbacks, all of those items. So we calculated those pieces, and also your shape factor that you look at for lot shape, to make sure that we're not going too funky on the shapes. And so we feel that we proved all that out in getting to the 24 units. And then what we did is we have a,
All right, I'm gonna stop you, time out for a second, just to make sure everybody's on the same page here.
Common?
All right, so we're all on this sheet right now, right? This one right here, the yield plan. So just make sure that we're getting everything set straight.
Sure.
Those two cyan lots that are up on the screen are gonna be, you're proposing to consolidate those.
correct,
Then this yield plan that you're showing right here is the build-out on that lot as if it were not a open space development.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason being,
Number.
So many
That's how you
acres.
can get the number of, you
Correct,
have to show the
correct.
yield plan to be able to get the number of lots.
we recognize that your regulations essentially require, unless you go for a conditional use permit, that you do go for an open space, but the yield, the density has to be determined by the yield plan.
All right.
And so, yes, those two parcels are consolidated together, and that's the shape that you see here. You can see the two legs. There's essentially an existing lot in between the two legs, and the lot line that is shown there has been eliminated for the purposes of our design, because we were going to be consolidating those two lots.
Are you showing half-acre lots?
Yeah, they are.
So-
Wait till you get to the
Next
next
page.
page.
On the
Last
next
page like
page, yes, so we're still on yield plan. The yield plan has to be at least an acre, and it has a lot of other criteria that you have to hit to meet that yield. But then, when you go to the open space calculation, which is on the last sheet of your packet, that's our open space, and those are half-acre minimum lots, so they're the smaller lots, significantly less road, and significantly more preserved conservation land as part of the open space. So what you can see, the hatched area on the plan is the open space that we're proposing to preserve, that would be deed restricted in perpetuity. And just for numbers' sake, as I said, the total parcel was 55 acres. What we're showing in open space right now is 32 and a half acres, roughly 60% of the parcel. So,
Of that 60%, how much is wet and how much is uplands?
good question. I don't have that number with me, but, obviously we can have that. I would say at least half of it is wet, being, that larger area. But essentially, we look at that, we do that intentionally. Obviously, the highest value wetlands, if you can put those in the conservation area that's permanently restricted and deed restricted, that's for the best. So the area that's in the back, it does have a larger wetland system in it, but that was kind of intentional. In fact, we did, as you can see, there's a separate lot, so to speak, on the southern
That
portion.
says open space?
Correct.
Yep.
That piece, we could have just included that between lots 18, 17, and 18, but we intentionally took that out because, again, that's the larger area of a finger wetland that comes down and through. So with this design and with the yield plan, essentially we have two proposed wetland impacts of two wetland fingers. One of them very, very skinny, would be a very minor impact, which is the one on the right as you first come in off the paper street, and then a second one immediately after that, which is a little bit wider. We don't have exact wetland impact numbers because we don't have finalized grading at this point based on our, our road design and everything, but I can tell you that they are going to be minimalistic impacts because of where we're crossing. Less than a 5,000 type square foot impact, so they're not heavy, huge impacts or anything like that. We have thought through, we've looked at topography, the road works very well where shown. It actually is about a 1 to 1.5% down pitch all the way to close to the throat of the cul-de-sac, right where that second bend is. is where it can come right to a low point, and then the cul-de-sac just tips right back up into a nice plateau of area of where we're going to be able to just take our drainage, and our thought was to bring the drainage out behind lots 12 and 13 that we have shown on the open space overview.
You mean 13 and 14?
No, 12.
More like 12 and 13, closer to the wetland finger there.
No drainage easement there, I'm just saying to you.
Well, we're going, yeah,
Yeah.
you're correct. Good observation. We're going between lots 13 and 14, but then we'll end up bending to be kind of more behind.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yep.
Hey, do you have an extra copy?
Sure.
Yeah, there you go.
But remember, this has not been even applied to the planning board yet. And about you'll get noticed.
So, I mean, essentially, we understand your process, and we just wanted to initially get started. I'm not looking for any binding feedback or anything at this stage, but wanted to get started, wanted to know if, this would be a project that you'd be interested in performing a site walk on. I assumed you probably would. So I thought, I heard that the past gentleman did it backwards, so I'm doing it the forwards way, which was meeting conceptually, coming in, saying hello, and looking to then follow up with a site walk. We're going to be doing test pits on site to be proving out soils. We can have locations of our proposed wetland crossing areas laid out, so I can take you to those areas, show you where we're looking to cross. We can talk about type of crossings. I would assume these being very small finger type crossings that we could get away with, a pipe of some sort, but I mean, those can be discussion items that we can see once we look at it in the field. But that was really our first step, was to meet with you guys, set up a site walk, if that's requested, which it sounds like it will be, and then, get that more solidified feedback. We can provide more detailed plans of the crossings on square footage and everything at that point. And, and then hopefully take that information, because the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our next stop would be to the zoning board, not necessarily the planning board, just because we have these two crossings. If we can't get the two crossings for whatever reason, then no point in going through the planning board process.
Do you have wetland professionals out there working on it?
Yes, we do. Yeah, this was flagged by John St. John, who's a certified wetland scientist. And so all these were flagged and located by our office. We have in-house survey at our company, so we located all his flags, and that's what you see here on the plans.
So would you be coming back here then after you have calculation numbers for your crossings?
Yeah, I mean, my thought was, start with you guys here, initial introductions, set up a site walk, and then perform that site walk and come back with whatever feedback we see. If you said, hey, we really think this needs to be some different type of crossing based on what we're seeing out here, we can take that information in, make some adjustments, and then we'll come back and see you with, I guess what I would say, not finalized plans, but at least finalized plans that would be presented to the ZBA.
The 32.5 acres that you say are open space, does that include this lot in between 17 and 18?
It does, yes. Yep, so you're looking at 28 acres on the left side, and that isolated lot is about 4 acres to get you to the 30.
Can I
32.
ask, how come Lot 5 is so huge and the rest of them are, it seems out of...
Yeah, it's a good question. If you look at the topography of that area, it's the only point on site that has some isolated fill kind of areas. It's mounded in the middle, and so we figured, rather than, and this was something that was discussed with the client, we likely could fit 2 building lots there, but it would have been pretty, it would have been tight. The lots would have been tight, because you have to grade that area down, because the crossing, similar to the previous applicant, we're looking at crossing about 6 feet above the existing road, just enough to get you your sufficient cover over whatever crossing we have in that area. And you can see that you got a bit of a mound there. It goes up about 10 feet, 12 feet. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's proven out on our topo that we have as well from our survey. And so essentially what we're thinking is that, you're gonna end up plateauing that lot. You're gonna grade more to the perimeter of that lot. And so it looks larger, but you're gonna need that larger area to kind of bring that area down. So rather than, try to force 2 lots in there, we kind of made it one larger. So that's why.
Which makes sense, because the sloping of the cutting to get the.
That's
slope.
exactly it.
That's the reason why it says sloping.
That's the sloping, yep.
So just, so the actual proposal is the open space overview, not the yield plan?
Correct, yeah, and I haven't been before this commission previously, and so I don't know if you guys typically weigh in at all on the yield, or that's more the planning board side, but we knew we had to do it to prove out density, so we started there and then went to the open space. But, I mean, obviously, we have full intention of designing the open space piece. One, because I think
We've
we're
done this in
required to.
town, we've done this in town before, off Nelson Cake, I'll say that. PID out there, that was built, we got a lot of open space that they have not disturbed, but the lot sizes are much smaller, and everybody seems to like it, less lawn to mow.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm relatively new to the commission, so I'm trying to educate myself. So the yield plan is based on the 1 acre zoning.
Correct, the
The
density.
open
Correct.
space plan means
Yep.
there's a space dedicated to open space, and we can get by with smaller
Yep.
lot spaces with less impact to the land.
You got it.
Less road.
Same amount of lots in a smaller area.
We did that with Weatherstone.
But less impact to the,
Wetlands and the land itself.
We did that with Weatherstone, correct?
yeah, so I guess just looking at the yield plan, like I can't visualize how you could develop like lot 18 and 19 without access, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would, for some of those lots, you'd be looking at either a shared driveway access or an additional wetland impact for the driveway. I mean, I think the way I understand, I mean, typically in other towns that I've done yield plans, it's not necessarily the ideal layout. It's what's permittable, it's what's allowed, you know, and obviously to access a lot with upland like that on the backside of a wetland finger, you'd have the opportunity to propose a driveway crossing, which we don't need to do in the design that we're proposing because we're clustering the lots. If you were going conventionally, you have more impacts, and that's, I think that's kind of the intent of going to a cluster, because you're disturbing less land, you're preserving more areas that are of ecological value, you know, and so that's kind of the thought. So, I mean, usually the yield plans don't look as nice as a clustered plan, because you can cluster them essentially with smaller lots, so.
And the open space wouldn't be touched, it wouldn't be.
No, that would, you know, per your regulations, there would be a conservation easement restriction over that land in perpetuity. So it doesn't matter, you know, who owns the property. It's essentially recognizing that this property was master planned and used as such. So for example, because this is a question I get asked sometimes, if this development were to be approved and done, and the road was built 20 years from now, can somebody say, hey, you know, I got a great piece of upland right off of Charles Bancroft Highway, can't we just put a house there? Well, all that property is gonna be deed restricted, so it can't happen.
Thank you.
This paper street, it doesn't exist yet, would go in between 2 houses that are already.
It would, I mean, it's
Pearson.
master planned, I mean, they lined it across the street from Morrill Street, you can see. And so that was put in place when,
It would have bought these 2 places.
It would,
that
yes.
hadn't had one before.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, lots 18 through 24 abut permanent residents already?
That
Yes,
side does, yes,
yes, correct.
yes.
We are showing on all of those your requirement of the 50-foot buffer. You can see that area, the setback, normally, you can see the difference between the lots, say, on the cul-de-sac, the rear setback is only 20 feet, but because those are abutting open space, so you only have a 20-foot setback. On lots 24, or 18 through 24, those have a full 50-foot setback.
Are you sure of that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely looks a lot bigger.
Well,
Yeah.
looking at the front, okay, the front says set back to less, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I think the fronts are
Yep,
30.
Yep,
30.
yep, I'm sorry.
No, no problem.
And just so we're clear, that means that 50-foot means that there's no touching, no trees or anything would be disturbed.
Correct, yeah. So, I mean, we would do, you know, when this development is to be built, there would be a survey, we would survey out the cut limit, and that area would all stay in its natural state.
There's trails all back there right now, right?
Yeah, there's some. I mean, there's a main trail that kind of runs through that left side, right on the rear of that existing lot that kind of comes into our site. There's like a main trail
That's
that
the
goes through.
trolley track, probably.
Yeah,
And then there's a lot of side trails back there.
I'm sure, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
there
just,
are, there's a
yeah.
lot going on back there right now.
Well, on the James Colby piece, there is, but I don't know.
There is on theirs too, I believe it goes.
I mean, because it's vacant land right now, so I'm sure people use it for recreation and
We always have.
other fun stuff. Yeah.
We always did.
Anybody got any questions? I'll
When can we do the
open it
sidewalk?
for, the public wants to speak. Anybody in the public have any questions?
Rick Charbonneau, 401 Charles Bancroft Highway. I think on this yield plan, before you kind of accept this as a yield plan, I think they should plot the septic system in the house. Because I don't think you're gonna build on lot 5. I don't think you're gonna build on lot 3. I don't think you're gonna build on lot 19. I don't think you're gonna build on lot 12 when you plot the septic system and the house. Never mind the wetland impacts. So I think you gotta look at
Yeah,
what the real yield
and you get a
is.
4,000 square foot bracket on any of the
I think you gotta, when you're coming up with a yield plan, I mean, you should have to be kinda accurate, and I don't. Good point. I don't see this as being.
So this is kind of just like a hi, how are you?
Right now it's
You're not
conceptual.
looking.
Well, I mean, I do, I can address that comment because, I mean, as I said, we spent a significant amount of engineering time on the yield plan because we knew that was kind of step one. And, you know, I would say that when you look at these lots, it is a bit deceiving. Keep in mind that this plan is at 150 scale as a half size. So you're looking at basically 300 scale on this plan right here. And so those areas, I mean, we have 150 feet of frontage. You have a 50-foot setback off the wetlands and a 75-foot building setback. And that area, like, so let's use Lot 5 as an example, because that one's kind of skinny and tightens up. So Lot 5, you go to our chart, it's a 83,000 square foot lot, of which 65,000 is dry, non-wet. And of that, all entirely within the setbacks, you have 17,500 square feet of land. So when we're talking about, can you put a house, a septic field, and a well in 17,000 square feet? The answer is yes. You know, that.
I,
There's no well on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Yeah, we are on town water, which that makes it better. But and also, the shape factor, that was something, actually, it's the first time I've come across something like this in any town. It's actually excellent, I have to say, because essentially, I don't know if everyone's familiar, you said you had just got on the board.
Flag lots.
Essentially, what you have is the shape factor. If you have a perfect square, then you have a shape factor of 1. And they recognize that lots are going to have jigs and jogs and be more, you know, non-square. But it has to be at least 0.4, otherwise you're trying too hard or you're pushing the envelope. So the fact that these lots all meet the shape factor and meet this buildable chunk, I would argue that every single lot shown here is fully buildable. I mean, that's really the intent of your yield plan, is to prove, okay, you have the buildable envelope, you have the lot size, you have the buildable envelope, you have the shape factor on the lot. So, I mean, you have a buildable lot.
I understand Rick's concern. I can see it on 5. but the leach field's not gonna be an issue, because you can build it within the setbacks. Okay?
But if you look at the contiguous dry area,
Well, I can see it happen, I can see it happening, yeah,
All I'm saying is,
it's tight,
show a house in a septic system on it.
yeah,
And if it meets it,
yeah, because
no
I'm,
more, I don't care.
Rick, I'm just saying, because I've done this before, as you well know, and I'm looking at this going, okay, I can get that to fit, that to fit, and that to fit, but I understand what they're asking. Rick's asking, if you can do a preliminary layout, because you already got your test pit ideas already done, the soil's gonna be the same up there 99% of the time.
Well, the only question is I would say, and I mean, this may be a planning board question, but, you know, typically I don't want to entirely engineer a yield plan that I'm not using. I want it to be real enough that it satisfies any concerns, and I want it to meet the criteria, which I feel that this table shows it does.
yeah, the table is good, yeah.
So,
If you can get the wetland permit to make all the driveways.
yeah, and we feel that we
So
could.
that's out of the purview of this commission, but if I were you, you might want to have this meeting with the planning board, just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm Reggie Morrow, I'm the developer. The reason why we're here is just again to look at, well, we had multiple different ways to look at the road profiles and going into this and how we wanted to drain it. And as we went through those iterations, we kept finding that we found a better way, and a better way, and a better way, and this came down to this one here, which initially we had multiple detention ponds, we had, you know, a lot of other things that were going on, with the crossings were greater. So and I think Joan saw some of this, and Jason might have saw some of this way back when we first threw something on paper. But since we've gotten all the engineering done, the topography done, and everything else, this has really turned down to, and been honed down to what we see here today. All the processes that we have to go through, this is again more for informational, to get you out there to take a look at things, to have something as a guide when you do go out there to look at things, so that you understand what we're trying to do, and rather than just going out there and looking at what's there. And then from there, we'll go to the planning board, the ZBA, and wherever else we have to go to hone this down, go through the considerations that Rick's bringing up with respect to, you know, which lots are buildable, which ones aren't in the yield plan. All of that will get discussed. But based on what the town's ordinances are and the regulations that we have to go by, this yield plan works. It meets the intent of the ordinances and regulations that you have. So from that point, we'll sit in front of the board, the planning board, and have those discussions to move it forward, to see if there's anything there that they have concerns over. But we just want to get you on page with what we're proposing to do, so when you go out there, you have something in your mind as to where we're going to impact, where we're not going to impact, otherwise we really wouldn't have much.
We also felt that the planning board and the zoning board specifically would be very interested in hearing your thoughts on our proposed crossing locations. They might look at the layout and say, this looks great, but what about those crossing locations? So in our opinion, the way this has to be done, the fact that there's a special exception required for the wetland crossings, and that's a zoning board trip prior to even going to the planning board, we felt you guys were the first step, more focusing on the crossing locations. And obviously, if the planning board says, no, this has to completely change and we have to move the road, then we have to come back to you and reevaluate different crossing locations.
So the reason I was asking about the trails that were back there is so that we would have access to where you're talking about. For the most part, we should be able to get through there.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I haven't been on site. We're doing test pits next week, so I'll be much more familiar with the property, but.
I think what would be helpful is a site walk, and if you could lay it out for us, just make sure you're staking the center line of the road. We're staking these areas
I want to walk in from Paper Street.
Of course, yeah.
I want to walk in from there, right?
Yeah, I think we'd like to see to walk the full yield plan, not
Yep.
just
I want to come in that
the
way.
open space as well.
That's fine, yeah.
I question like lot 24, how would you access that on the yield plan?
Oh, it's easy.
Because you have no way in or out except for that Paper Street, right?
Oh, yeah, 24.
Yeah, with
Not a
regard,
hard
well,
one.
with
It's easy.
regards to lot 24, just for clarification, so currently, right now, this is kind of our take on this one. Currently, both of these lots, both this 20-plus acre lot and the other 20-plus acre lot, have only frontage on 3A. So our take would be that, you know, at a minimum, you would have, one would think, be able to access in some form or way, if, say, someone just bought the 25-acre piece to get one house on it, they would put a house off of Charles Bancroft Highway.
Yeah.
And so what we were showing is, we're only using one piece of that frontage of the yield plan to show one lot. So we're not showing two lots off of Charles Bancroft, which there are two lots right now. We're showing just one.
Wait a
And
minute, wait a
So
minute.
explain that to me, how can you, is there one existing on there right now, right?
there's two existing lots, like,
Right, and
of
you
record.
Lots, but
have
there's nothing
frontage,
erected
But you have a
on
whole bunch of wetlands to cross to get to 24.
Correct. However,
You can get there.
I guess what my point is that lot 24 is all of the remaining land and both frontages. All of it.
But you can't get there from 3A.
Well,
Well-
not to say no on that. I've seen cases, Joan, and I'm gonna say this kindly, where if you have a lot of record and you have some wetland to get from point A to point B, you may be able to get a crossing through the DES and boundary of the town, because you're gonna landlock somebody. What you're saying, you can't build on it 100%. No, you can't just say that. You gotta give them something.
This is the reason the former owner couldn't build on these, because it couldn't come in off of 3A.
Well, that's what he's saying, with a major road, but
Oh, look
maybe
how
with
much
a
wetland they've
driveway.
got there.
Well, I think the point that I'm saying is that if, and you're kind of hitting the nail on the head where I'm coming from, is that if someone has 25 acres and they have a large parcel of upland, when you go to get a wetland permit through DES, you have to look at avoidance and minimization. However, you have a right to access your uplands. So if you have a significant area of uplands, multiple acres of uplands,
You're right to get
that
there.
you, and your frontage is off of a road that has to have a wetland crossing to get there, you have a right to propose that crossing.
You're also not supposed to fill to develop.
I don't
I
think so.
don't know about
No,
that,
no.
only because you do have a right to access your uplands for development purposes.
That's true.
I lost you. What brought that? What are you saying?
Because lot
We were
20,
talking
It's all-
about
Rick,
on
it's all
the
new to you.
Plan lot 24, how would that be potentially developed if you had access
get
through
to.
Charles Bancroft?
Well, and the other argument too to show
Type of
is,
development.
if you see, there's an area of upland closer to Charles Bancroft
Yep.
that could support a home. So you don't have to get where we have that label that says 24. You could actually put your home closer to the road and not cross the larger wetland area. So there's opportunity for development, and we felt that showing just one home on all that, I mean, the size of lot 24, just for reference, is 736,000 square feet. I mean, it's a humongous lot, and I recognize, yes, a fair amount of it is wet, but there is 164,000 square feet of contiguous dry land within that massive area. So out of 164,000 square feet of dry land, I think one house is reasonable to be put, but that's our
I think we're
contention.
talking about a planning board question.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which has nothing to do with us with conservation.
Correct.
so-
But this is the same thing that we had when we did,
Firefly?
Firefly. Remember, we had a lot down on 3A, we got the variance, we could build it, but when, it's gonna be a planning board thing, because
Yeah,
when
it
you
is
go
gonna
with
be planning board.
conservation subdivision, you can't have a lot off of.
So it won't, it will never be, right?
We
it'll
want
never
to
be a
see the
single lot.
street.
Yes, to clarify that, just so, this is only represented as a yield plan lot.
That's correct.
So we will not be
Density.
accessing off of Charles Bancroft. And again, the yield plan, and I do want to stress this, is that maybe you guys don't typically see the yield plans as often because it goes to planning. But the yield plan is never an overly pretty plan. There's usually additional wetland impacts required. There's additional hardships, more slopes, more grading, more impact, period. And that's the whole point, is that, can it be built? Yes. Could DES give us a wetland permit to access 163,000 square feet of upland? Yes, they could. I feel very confident that they could. And so therefore, it is a yield lot of which we would like to not go through that process and just do the open space required.
That sounds like a great idea,
That
but
that
we-
makes sense.
back to us walking the area, when you get an opportunity to know when we could do that, that would be great. We would want to walk in through where the road is proposed to the larger area, not into this, that will become a separate issue, I can already tell.
Yeah, no, I mean, again,
So-
it's, I agree with you, and I know the planning board's going to ask those questions. I feel that we have the data to show that from a yield plan perspective, it meets the rules. It's not great, it's not, you know, does it require wetland impacts? Yes, but that doesn't mean it's not buildable, so,
We'll let them deal with that.
That's not us.
fair enough.
I think
You're above our pay grade.
Um,
We take care of the little furry
we
animals.
still
and
have
stuff.
public input open, I think, right? So if anybody's,
Just one question.
Yes.
George Lavash, 13 Pearson. It's just about the yield plan. You have
wait, you gotta say that slower for a minute.
George
George
Lavash.
Lavash, 13 Pearson Street.
Okay.
On the yield plan, you have a 20-foot buffer between the lots and the existing houses.
Correct.
But it's 50 on the actual. Is that what's the?
That's correct. So if you were doing a standard subdivision, the buffer requirement is not required, essentially. So, you know, if you were to build a conventional subdivision, you don't have to have a 50-foot buffer.
Nope, just one.
Just, well, and actually, you don't even have it's a 20-foot building setback, it's not a buffer. So essentially, your house could be 20 feet to the back of the line, and then the rest could be lawn or something.
We can cut all the trees.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a provision, and again, they recognize, the regulations recognize that the open space development, everything's tighter, more density, so give that buffer. So that's a requirement of the open space and not of the conventional.
Okay, sidewalk, Dave?
You-
You wanna pick one?
What was that?
Site walk, so it's, think about a site walk.
We'd love to
Dave.
get out there.
Sure.
And thanks for
Before we
coming.
get into that, what do you think of putting here? Like,
Homes.
how, I know that, Kevin, but
Single-family homes, market rate,
size,
No.
you know, garages.
Right now, the demand that we're seeing is anywhere from, say, typical 2,200 square feet for a two-story home to 2,600 or 2,800 square feet.
Yep.
And, you know, we just bought a piece of land over on Pilgrim, a smaller lot over there. And, we're doing a home over there that's, it's about 2,800 square feet.
Okay.
So just to give you an idea, that's what people wanted. We had something smaller at 2,200 square feet, and they said, nah, we want this. And we had two different buyers on it. That's
Well,
I just say that's more space you gotta clean.
Do we have any more public
the
input?
for the town.
Yeah.
anybody else have any questions from the public? Because I'm gonna
Nope.
close public input. Anything? All right, we'll close public input, 7:43 PM. So we gotta find a date for the site walk. And it sounds like the commission would like to go in from Pearson, so if we can mark that out.
sure.
I don't know if you've got a DR brush mower or something like that, where you can get in there.
No way.
Well, we will be doing test pits, and the excavator is gonna make a little bit of a path,
That
to
was
get.
conservation humor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you notice they want to
happy.
grind everything down?
I know you are.
Conservation's good at that.
Lord.
So let's just make sure we're clear. Mark out the center line of the road to the best extent possible,
Yeah.
so we can
kinda-
follow that in.
We can see the test pits and that'll give us an
Follow the map.
idea which lots they're gonna be on. You know?
They're gonna test every lot?
Yes.
Yep.
For each lead.
Yeah, I hear
And what you do, if you could do that, mark out on the test pit which lot you're on. So if we see the tag, we know where we are.
Well, they're gonna be with us. We'd like a
I
guided.
know, but I'm just saying. in
Yeah,
case
I'll
he
make
can't
sure.
make it.
Yeah, no,
guided tour.
I'd like to be your guide, if possible.
That would be good.
You know, just make sure you're marking out where you think the wetlands crossings are,
Yep.
stuff like that, where the impacts are. Also, wouldn't mind having this plan ahead of time before the site walk. Just so that we can throw it up in there and we'll see the blue dot as we're kind of walking down behind the scenes. Then
Which plan, what plan do you have?
this plan right here,
Electronically?
The last page.
actually, we can put that up in
Oh,
there.
oh,
and
happy
when
to
we're out
send
there
those over, yeah.
in the Field, we can see what,
Yep.
where
Yep.
we're standing.
We have a copy machine too.
Okay, that sounds good.
We need to pick a date. And should we do this in coordination with the planning board, or?
No.
You're ways off. You're
Okay.
ways off.
So just give us a date when you want us to.
Oh.
Email Jay or Joan.
Well, this Saturday would be too soon and it's gonna rain
Oh.
anyway.
They don't know when they're gonna be ready.
About, 10th's not good.
Calendar in this room is just too small.
What do you like? You like the 17th?
June?
Yeah.
Pick something and see if it sticks.
Try 17th, June 17th.
So it sounds like, can you guys do June 17th?
What time?
Well, first, see if you like the date,
It would be like 9 AM.
early, yeah,
What
Or is it
day are we talking
Saturday?
about?
the Saturday.
It's summertime, I might be somewhere. What day are we talking about? I could be on the
17th.
beach. What day?
The 17th.
Do you guys always do Saturdays or you do
No, we
Sundays
could
or?
do another day, it
I could
stays
do-
light till
well,
8 o'clock.
My son has soccer games on Saturday and I coach, so.
Let's do it the Sabbath.
Do.
I feel more important on that day.
I'm gonna be away the 24th, but the 17th, 18th, I will be there.
Well, it stays light till 8 o'clock at night and just
The
bring
18th is Father's Day.
your bug spray.
Oh, come on, I was on a baseball field for Mother's Day my entire life. All right, yeah, that's so,
What day do you rather do a
we can do it
weekday?
at night
Yeah, if you guys do weekdays, I mean, that's
Holy.
fine with me.
We gotta wrangle this under control. What do you guys, Diane and Joan, I'm gonna go to the other folks. What's good for you?
Weekdays better.
Okay.
Weekdays better in the evening? Is that good for you?
Yeah, anytime after 3 o'clock I can do.
Yeah, evenings are fine, obviously not.
What are you
on a day
talking
during the
about
week.
evening? 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock's fine.
Not
o'clock.
Great,
Tuesdays,
when the bugs come out.
not Tuesdays.
And, all right, so let's do that. What date is good for you? Say, let's pick a Thursday?
Which game do you don't have that day?
Yeah, not Tuesday, I golf on
No,
Tuesday.
games are Saturday, so
Okay,
weekdays
you got
are
all weekend to
fine.
pick on you.
So,
So not Tuesday, not.
So I don't know if you guys like,
I
wanna
can't
do
do
like a
Mondays.
next Wednesday or?
all right, we're gonna, hold on, time out here. We're gonna pick a Wednesday or Thursday within the next 2 weeks. What do we got, Joan?
22nd?
What about, would they be done by the 8th with the,
Test bits?
test pits? Or at least,
Yeah, we're doing the test pits next Tuesday and,
They'll be done in one.
and we'll make sure that we have the stakeout done before that.
so you wanna go try the 8th?
If you wanna try the 8th, we can try the 8th.
That's
That
next
works.
week.
Sure.
We will notice this, right, Joan?
Yes.
So the public can come along, tag along with us.
What time?
6 PM. If we can get out there before we get
And bug,
attacked.
and bug control, we got Mosquito Joe going out there to help us.
All right,
We'll take care
All
of
right,
it.
so what did we decide again? I forgot.
June 8th, 6 PM.
June 8th, 6 PM.
Where would we meet?
Pearson.
In between what lots on Pearson?
Right across from Morrill.
Across from Morrill, yeah. Park on Morrill, it's only one house on Morrill.
Who's that?
It's up
You can
here.
just do your best to clear
Oh,
a path for us where the road is, that would be good.
good answer.
We're not wandering around aimlessly.
You're the only one? Joan, meet the only guy on the street.
She knows.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, think we're good?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, I gotta go outside. I need a quick bio break.
Okay, looks like we're gonna,
Yeah.
all right, old business.
5 minutes.
Harry, quick update on the fishing derby. Anything I know you wanted to give a little summary.
Oh, first of all, I want to thank everybody that showed up to help. That's number one. I certainly appreciated that. And what we had 54 kids, which is the same amount that we had the previous year. And because of the crappy weather, there's only about 25 fish caught.
Yeah.
But that's understandable because of the way the stream was. Budget-wise, between the two groups, we spent $806. We spent $406.
Sounds like we could have taken them all out to the lobster hut.
Pardon? I'm sorry.
Sounds like we could have taken them to the lobster boat for $806 for 25
Probably.
fish. That was very fresh.
Before they shot the cook or after they, anyway, so, unless someone heard something different, I guess it was all positive.
Yep.
So,
The only problem with it, Harry, and I really don't know what we can do about it, maybe we should close that
Yeah.
door.
Yeah,
I
thank you,
don't know
Fred.
what we can do about it, but it was very hard to fish there for especially the younger ones. The location itself
Yes.
is rough to fish in. And my job last year was to go around and tell people that they weren't supposed to help the kids. And after trying to fish there myself, this last time, if I was
Rick and I went to
having
school
somebody come
together.
by behind me and say that to me, I would have said, are you
He
freaking
lives in
kidding?
town.
There's no way a
His wife still lived
five-year-old
right
could
next to
fish
him when I was
there.
growing up.
So.
well, I
where
totally,
else-
absolutely agree with you.
Yeah,
That's
where-
a tough,
Well, what's the agenda
We need
now?
a
weather
location.
this
Yeah,
year,
fishing derby.
plus the location made it very tough to fish.
Recap.
There's no ifs and buts
Fox
about it.
fish.
So,
So?
anyway,
Have you contacted any other sources?
Hey, Fred, time out.
I'm sorry, Henry, please go
yeah,
on.
no,
Gets
I-
picked up on the mics.
so,
Shut
what'll
the mic up.
happen, I guess next year, we'll set a new date in October. And meanwhile, I am trying to pursue a new location.
Great.
I did drive on to Wilson Farms property expecting to get arrested, but that's beside the point. Took a look at that retention pond, and that retention pond appears to be as big pond as what Londonderry has, which handles like 1,500 kids.
No, but I
So-
just thought of a problem with that. If the state puts their fish matches what we buy, then I think.
This
it
is
has to-
true.
Has to be open to the public, and Wilson's not gonna.
Well,
be open to the public.
I found out from the state that you can have a private location and still get a permit.
Yeah,
The only problem is the state will not match,
Fish costs.
will
So
not match
how
the
many
fish.
fish did we have?
We
this
had
year?
about 150 this year,
And we only caught 25.
yes.
Well, and
So
the
they may
state
have-
matched, too, so we had, what, 300 fish?
About 300 fish.
Okay, so, and we only caught 25 fish.
About that, yeah.
Folks, if we buy 150 fish and they don't match, we're still gonna increase, hopefully, the likelihood that these kids are gonna be able to fish. So
Yeah.
that would be
if
good,
you had a better location.
Well,
if we have a better
I mean,
location, yeah.
this is all theory right now because I've been trying to get hold of Wilson Farm to
Did you
talk
call
to.
the Lexington location
Yes.
and talk to, what is his name, Jeff?
Who are you trying to get hold of?
Keith, Joan gave me the
Keith is
telephone numbers
here.
of
Keith
the,
is local.
Huh?
Keith is local, right. Keith
Marshall
is local, but there's a
Keith is
owner.
local?
He's local. He's here
Okay.
in town. He's the farm manager, right?
You got it.
But there's a person who's an owner that works out of Lexington. So are you calling
One of the
Lexington and
sons.
even a
No,
message?
the number Joan gave me was a Massachusetts number,
Well, that's his cell phone.
and I've called about 3 times, and he's not called me back, but that's not gonna deter me.
Who is the owner that manages Lexington that you can, is it Jeff?
So if,
That doesn't sound right.
what,
I have his name in the file too.
Keith,
Mr. Wilson.
Diane, are you saying that Keith is here in Nash,
Yeah, yeah,
in Litchfield?
yeah, he's the manager here.
I'll hunt him down. Simple.
Okay.
That's all.
And then
But there
he
is
can ask somebody.
One of the sons or nephews or something.
Well, but if he gets a hold of Keith, then Keith can ask
Okay.
whoever.
Okay.
Because I got hold of some guy named Scott, and he just about blew me off.
I think it is Scott Wilson.
Might be Scott, yeah.
Scott Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
and
And
he
what did
would.
he say? He said call Keith.
Oh, yeah, he said, call Keith, I'll give him the message, and that never happened.
Okay.
Well, we got time, and
We got till
So,
next year.
If Keith is here in Litchfield, you can guarantee that I will track him down
Okay.
All right.
and get an answer one way or another.
You want his
But-
number?
This is a busy
That is
time for
good.
them too, so.
Yeah, it's
I
crazy busy.
understand that.
Crazy busy.
I-
Yep.
I understand that. However, maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but if you put a phone call in, at least common courtesy would say, what the hell do you want? You know?
Apparently, that's what you got. Okay, moving on, right?
yes.
Moving on.
I would just tell you
Thank
the
you,
best way to
Harry,
do it is
again.
to walk in and say hi.
Yeah, that's, see
Regardless
when
They
they're
walk in,
there.
the-
Regardless of how many fish were
Stands
caught,
not open.
the faces of the kids were priceless. The people that were there were happy.
Yeah. The
Nobody
only
really
other- The only
complained.
other comment, the only other suggestion is that when we put up name tags,
No
don't
last
put
name.
the children's name on there.
Yep.
Didn't even dawn on me.
Just give them a number.
Yep.
Just
Let
give them
them learn that early in life.
Yep.
Well, because there was this guy that was walking around taking pictures. I didn't know who he was.
He's on
It was
He was
Jay,
here.
the guy that was here,
Yeah.
that said he was gonna take
Yeah,
pictures.
he said he was gonna.
Okay,
Yeah.
he just was there, and no one told me he was there, and I had to finally go up and ask him, you know, what was he doing? So,
Well, I like to just say then, with all the fish that were put down there, I suggest anybody in town wants to go fishing, get down there. They're still there.
I don't know about
I
that.
I don't think they are.
Oh, one other question.
I did take a walk down there, and there was somebody fishing there, but he wasn't
Yeah.
catching anything.
This is just a question. What do you think about the Saturday, the day before Mother's Day, that Saturday,
Next year?
next year?
Sure.
I'm not saying that's a confirmed date. I'm only asking a question.
Sure.
I mean, because I was against it, but I tried, we tried late in May and we ran out of water. So we tried early May and ran into
much
too
water.
much water.
Yeah.
So maybe this will be, just something to go for. Okay.
Good, no, thank you, Harry, that worked out well. All right,
Kids had a good time.
going down
Kids
to
had a good
other
time. It was good.
business, property checks, property maintenance.
I haven't been into Morris Falls from the 3A way lately, but we need another sign. Let me make sure. I hate to harp on this, but I'm not picking up any more dog poop. And I think we
Spread
need,
it.
this is this big sign like this one, that's at the
Okay,
river.
for the record, it says, oh, that's at the river access, is that
Right.
at the river access?
want one like that?
Carry in, carry out facility, please remove all your trash as you leave.
All right,
Perfect.
I'll look that up.
We
And
just put up a sign under video surveillance, even though we don't set up a
They
camera.
don't care.
I heard you can't do that, like you can't
Chris-
say,
Chris Burns told
Right.
us we
I
can't
will
do it.
say this, John,
Chris
I
is
know,
in
we got this thing
surveillance.
about in New Hampshire or across the United States, you pick up your
So
poop.
put up a sign saying under.
Above the border, they have signs that they put up.
We're not allowed.
If the dog poops,
It's-
spread
we're
it
not
out.
allowed to
Don't
do that.
pick it up. Don't waste your
Yeah,
plastic
except
bag.
that it's full of germs and everything else. Go
There's
read
no
the
germs in
signs in
dog poop.
Portsmouth. Yeah, sure, okay.
Okay.
all right, good on that. I think the other
He actually
properties,
brings up a good point, but we aren't gonna discuss that further.
yeah, not gonna,
I won't bring up
We're not
plastic
gonna
bags.
fight
any other property checks? We've been mowing the last
Nice job.
couple of weeks, everything seems to look pretty
For,
good.
for Morris Falls, there's some comments about a trail needed cleanup there, so for some
Brush.
limbs down.
Limbs.
I just did the loop. I didn't go from 3A, but it looks good.
Okay, because I didn't think anybody got down there.
Maybe I'll take a walk down there this weekend, I haven't been down there in a little bit, and check it out.
It was Monday. I think it was Monday. There was a lot of people down there, which is good.
I will say that the field on Route 3A, the gentleman was moving the brush. I'm gonna be cutting around that pole. Picked up a special little saw for that. I'll
Okay,
lay it down low, so it'll be all right. Okay?
yeah, that would be
It's
good.
close to home, I can get there.
The The only other thing I'll mention is that if you do any cleanup work or anything like that, make sure to log it in the system, because at the end of the year, we have to go to the budget committee and stuff like that. I wanna have a list. And so that's when you see those things come through, that just, there's a QR code, put your phone up to it. If not, just let me know and I'll end up logging it.
Thank you.
The one thing that we do have to figure out is some sort of mowing schedule for the community garden,
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the community
Moore's
garden in a
Falls, and across the street from the fire station, the muster field, just where maybe we can divide and conquer. And I think they probably need to be hit once a
Right
month or
now-
once every
well, right
3
now,
weeks or
probably-
something. Yeah.
Right now, maybe a little bit more.
This time of
Everything's
year, everything's
pretty
growing.
fast.
It's been dry, so.
Yeah, it's still growing pretty fast. I mean,
Um,
we mowed
Oh, down there.
that garden for
Yeah,
the,
that's.
we
that's
mowed that for
exceptional.
the Parker Park,
And that's growing fast.
and that's growing fast. That was thigh high.
Yep.
I gave the lock to the fire department to put back on Morris Falls Gate, but it was open the other day.
I have another
Call them.
lock kicking around.
Well, they have the key to that lock, so they need to be able to get in.
Do we want to just wire tie it? Would that do? I mean, if people are picking the lock, then that probably won't do any
I
good.
think someone took the lock off.
We took the lock off to get the tractor in there for the trees. I happened to be there
And
that
it
day.
never got put back on.
And
Who was
then,
in charge of that?
in charge of what? Locks?
Oh, the trees was me.
Yeah, but the lock.
The lock, I don't know who.
I
It was
gave,
Joe.
I gave back to the fire department. They were supposed to go up that same day, but I'll give them a call or go up there and see if it's back.
They don't have a chief, they're all set now.
Kevin, do you have access to a stump grinder by chance?
No, I don't. No, that's one thing I don't have.
Where do you wanna grind? Where do you wanna grind?
I want to clear up by the muster field. It's just the little birch
clump.
clumps. It's just, we can't really take the tractor in there without ripping off the deck.
The tractor that you're bringing, you can't do it, but the tractor that I may find can do it. I'll work on that.
I don't know if we could get up there.
I'm a little concerned with that because of the bank.
Kind of, yeah,
And the bank's starting to crack on the high side.
they're gonna get one of those mowers that,
Yeah, it's just, I don't know how soon that's gonna be.
all right, we'll figure that out. Maybe we can talk, so, Harry, you got any interest in mowing?
Not this time of year.
No? Okay, that's cool. That's good. Yeah.
Fred
It's
got
actually kind of
his,
therapeutic, driving around out here. That's-
I know a
Fred did a
guy
really
who's
good
81
job.
years old doing that right now. He's very therapeutic.
if you drop it off, I could probably do it occasionally too.
We don't want you going over the bank into the river.
I'm talking about the garden. I have fencing to keep me in. I could be restrained.
You could drive down there with it, so close.
Let's go down member input. Let's roll around where we want to go. Matt, anything?
Nothing, no.
Harry?
Yes.
Oh,
I had a lawn service called True Green, and the guy came over and sprayed my bushes. I went out about a week later, and every single bittersweet vine died.
And what else?
Just the bittersweet. So I've got to find out what they used.
That it's not organic.
Pardon?
That it's not organic.
No,
And I bet it comes back, too.
I don't know what he used. I was shocked.
Let's get
I
some.
went out there, because there was a lot of, I have a lot of bittersweet on that side. I have a lot of honeysuckle, and every vine died,
huh.
okay? But the
Nothing else?
honeysuckle, no, the grass was fine, the honeysuckle bushes were fine.
Which outfit was this?
Contact with that guy.
Well, I'll
I'll make
No,
do
but-
some research.
But did you get in touch with the guy that you were
I
gonna
hate
bring on
this.
and do a program with us? Did you get in touch with the guy you were gonna do a program with us on
Oh, the
Oh,
UNH
not
thing,
yet.
yeah.
eradication,
No,
townwide eradication of
yeah,
bittersweet?
I will.
A
Maybe we should
mission.
see if they have a crop duster and spray the whole town.
I'm on a mission from God. I wanna get rid of that
So
bittersweet.
I think it's, no, but I'm not sure whether my
Conservation
lawn
Committee?
service did it or my
got the right
neighbor's
person on
lawn
this one.
service did it, but let me dig into it.
All right,
Because
it's
if they've
worth-
got
worth a shot.
something that,
Was it on the riverside? On your riverside?
yeah, we're on the riverside.
But was the bittersweet sprayed on the riverside?
No, it was stopped about, let's see, what do we have, a 50-foot buffer zone?
I don't know.
It's something like 50, anyway, no, it wasn't down on the river.
No, I mean, up, never mind.
Okay,
Good, Harry?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
the garden.
Yes.
Things have happened at the garden. It's wicked exciting.
Toted over the
We have
line.
Matt Riley, came in with his big machine, and he plowed a large area, in the garden. And then Mr. Flint from the Pink House came by after that,
Oh,
and
he's-
rototilled on top of it.
Yes, he did.
good.
I was wondering about
so
that, because
we
that
are-
big plow leaves like big ruts, and I
Right,
was like,
and
how
that, and they were all gone because Mr. Flint came in after it. I talked to Amber.
wow,
Um,
good.
And I guess Matt had actually, what I thought Matt said to me was that if we couldn't get help doing it by Mr. Flint, that he would do it. Or by, Matt McQuestion also said that he would get down and he would help us as well. So we are very lucky this year, that we have been able to have people say that they would help us. But it is something that we as a Conservation Commission should consider purchasing a rototiller
Yes.
for our new tractor, so that we don't have to beg
It'll
for
be
help.
easier next year, too.
Yeah.
Since Mark came in,
You still plow it each year, but the rototiller will be less trouble than it was this year,
Mark Riley.
because so much sod.
Mark Riley.
Mark
Mark
Riley.
Riley.
I'm sorry, Mark, I knew that.
Plus, you have the
Something wrong with it.
rototiller already hooked up with the harrow on it.
So
So it's have to go
we
now.
are in better shape. So now what we need is people to come forward, say they're ready to garden. We have a form that needs to be signed that says that you understand that it is an organic facility or garden, that we need to use good best practices of organic farming, including pesticides that are used there. We need to have that signed. Right now, we are not charging for the lots until we get up and running and we get it so that it looks like a garden over there. But we do need you to come in ready to tell us how much land you need and then get ready to fence that off. We do have groundhogs down there, so you are gonna need to
Fence.
get some fencing in there. It doesn't have to be too elaborate, but you do wanna prevent your hard work from being eaten by the local inhabitants. They do have the right to be there.
We have traps for those we use every year.
Have a hearts, and then we bring them, Kevin, not to my house.
I bring them to the town hall.
That's a great idea. Let's see,
Or I
no.
bring them up to Jones' house.
So contact me. My phone number is 603-540-3344.
Oh,
Contact me and we will meet down there. We will talk about what you need to do your garden, as far as space. I've had a couple of high school kids reach out that want to do fundraising and want to, start a garden there as well. So we should see something start to grow, and Jay has bought seeds.
I bought a pack of seeds for the first time in my life. And
So we're
and
gonna
I'm
have a
plant something
conservation
down there.
garden.
Yeah,
a pumpkin, that's what I
If
did.
we could get everybody excited about maybe
10 by
bringing
10
one
spot is
packet of
done.
seeds, we could start growing our own little conservation garden there.
Can't
Diane,
raise hemp yet, right?
there's plans for a water source there too, right?
There are plans for a water source. Steve Normanton said that he would help me. Tyler Garino, who's a local landscaper, mentioned that he would help me with that. Mark Riley, I believe it was, who was it that gave me the idea about the tank? I think it was Mark Riley, who
Yeah.
gave me an idea of a tank up there.
Yeah.
If you're not sure who Mark Riley is, he's our local Christmas tractor person who goes around to all the neighborhoods that goes out as well. He suggested we use a tank that would refill and then you use that right at the garden area. So we're ready to go. It's not just going to be used for those gardening plots, though. It is going to be used for recreation, a little small playground, a small area of picnic tables, small area to sit, a small center garden, a couple of areas of raised beds. It's going to be growing in as we use it. It's limited only by our imagination what we want to use. Jay wants to put a wiffle ball court
Yeah, that'd
out
be
there. So we have a lot to do. It's gonna develop over time. We pay $1 a year. Somebody asked whether or not the town was putting any money into this. No, none. If you've watched any of our meetings, you know the conservation budget's like $500 a year. Most of what we do is donated by the main members that are here. So, any questions, 603-540-3344, feel free to call me, and we can talk about going down there and meeting up, and we can fulfill all of your sophomore project requirements.
Good.
Thank you very much, that's all I have to
If you
say.
can pull this off and get a few things planted this year, we're gonna check
your
that box
pumpkins.
off. Yes.
I'm excited that we're plowed, that was like the big thing, now we just need people who said they wanted to do it.
I think I have in my backyard, a failed attempt at putting in a point well in my neighborhood. And it might be something that we might wanna try there.
Steve Normanton had said to use the brook, and Ray DeRocha said, that he had a lot of tubing and stuff like that, so,
Yeah.
Probably just need a small solar pump if we have a good container.
okay?
If you got, if you
Need a solar
got
pump.
a 200 gallon or
Tables.
300 gallon container out there, if you can get that filled once or twice a week wherever they're out there, that's the best way of going. The solar is a good way of doing it, because it will go slow.
It could turn into a nice little park, and then we're gonna build, ways to get down from that garden into Parker Park, so that you can, and enlarge Parker Park. So, I mean, it really is gonna be a nice little park area for our town, and relaxing place.
There's that 55 gallon drum that was down on, Morris Falls. Is that still there?
Probably. Steve Gannon said that he's got a couple of rain barrels that I think he'd give us, so
Awesome.
might be a start.
That would be a
We'll figure that
definite
out.
start.
We'll-
We will figure it out, but it is gonna be everybody working together. When we say community garden, we mean community garden. It's gonna take everybody to make it someplace that you wanna be.
Okay, moving along. I've got, so I don't think we have to go into non-public tonight, do we?
I had one question. Are you still doing member input?
Yep.
Go ahead.
So I'll just do the thing that I was gonna talk about, or we would potentially talk about in non-public, is the grant program. For a piece of property that we were looking at. I put in a pre-grant application.
Right.
That got approved. So now we don't have the grant, but we have the approval to submit for a full grant. So we kind of passed, there's 2 hurdles, we passed the first hurdle. In talking with the guy at the state today, he also brought up, because the area that we are looking at is also in an area where there is a groundwater protection, I'm trying to use the right words, but there's a groundwater protection area that relates to drinking water. So the area influences drinking water within the region. So there's another set of grants that are actually available out there that are targeted toward preserving land in areas that have potential influence on drinking water. So I'm gonna call those folks up tomorrow, and the guy from the state suggested that when we submit our full application, that we look at both those grants and submit on the grant application, say, we're also looking at this drinking water grant as well. And then we might have a higher chance of getting selected. He did tell me that they usually have, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but $3 million worth of grant funds, but there's $5 million worth of projects that were submitted. So, I don't know what our chances are, but he said, hey, if we can find other grant opportunities and glue them together, then we have a better chance.
You're on the
That
list.
is due on the 21st. I need to go to the Board of Selectmen to kind of get approval to submit that grant. I'm gonna do that at their next meeting. And I'll probably work with Joan. I'll have maybe you QC it, and Diane, if you wanna QC the grant application, I'll put it all together. It's all online, so it's not that, it's gonna take a while, but it's not like writing a term paper.
What about Kim? Kim said that she's really good at grants. She's taken like courses
I
and
can
stuff
ask
on
her,
grants.
but these, I know all the info.
Okay.
I know what has to,
She might
go
know
into
other
it.
places that we can go for money to, though.
I agree.
And there's all kinds of agricultural ones that are supposedly out there too.
A lot of it's just like a mapping exercise,
Mhm.
you know, and providing
Except for the
topo
budgeting-
maps
The
and,
budgeting side, though.
yeah. That's what I talked to the guy from the state about, the budgeting side. That's why I suggested potentially teaming with another grant program.
Good.
Because I don't think I don't think we would get the money that we were looking for, but we might be able to split it in half. All right, that's all I have. Joan, anything?
Yes, I have two things. It's turtle nesting season. Roger St. Laurent already called me about one that needs to be covered. I don't know if I'll make it in time, to cover them with hardware cloth so that raccoons don't dig up the nests. But if people see turtles crossing the road, they should always send them in the same direction that they're going. There is a new organization, Turtle Rescue, that will take injured turtles, which is kind of exciting. And my other thing is, May 13th, Glenn and I ran the bird walk. We had one participant.
I forgot to do all that, okay.
It was okay. It was the person that came was on a learning curve, and it was good for us to learn how to.
Pilot project.
Right, and at 8 o'clock in the morning was a good time to go down there. We got a lot of good sightings. And that's all I have.
Fred, anything?
No, thanks.
Kevin, anything? No? Okay, good there.
Oh, I do have one thing. I'd like to get that bittersweet killer. I'll talk to you about the brand name that they're spraying so I can borrow it. I'll talk to you later about it,
Oh, okay.
okay? Because I'm covered with bittersweet around me. Covered.
I was looking on the edge of our property that abuts your house, that little patch of trees.
Oh.
It is all
Did it?
there.
Oh,
Dead. When I lived there, it wasn't there at
Did you take a
all.
walk down there?
Just grew in.
No, not the one that's at the edge of the river access.
Oh, okay.
That side.
Yeah,
Okay.
the south side of my site. Now, I have a piece of land down the field with two fields on both sides and a golf course. That used to be a clean, you could look clean across. And the trees were growing, but now you can't because the bittersweet's growing up in between it and you can't even walk in there. So that's why I'm looking, I may want to spray that whole,
Mission for
Ew.
God,
Yeah.
to eradicate bittersweet.
Let me find out.
yep.
Okay.
Um,
Minutes?
Approval of meeting minutes. I read the minutes. I didn't have any issue with them.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
That would be the May minutes,
Mm-hmm.
the May minutes. We have a motion by Diane, seconded by Harry. Any comments to them at all? I'm looking at you, Joan.
No,
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 700. And then lastly, the next meeting is July 6th. I think we're go for that unless we find out that people can't make it, if they're on vacation.
I'll be out of town.
That's fine.
July 6th.
Yep.
It might be.
Can we just go in for like 5 minutes and I'll keep it to
My
5?
funeral date
Okay.
that week.
You wanna?
Yeah, just for
Okay.
like 5 minutes. Like literally.
All right,
5
public input. I'm gonna open up public input at 8:19 PM. Seeing nobody's here, I'm gonna close it at 8:19 PM. Non-public, so we're gonna go into non-public now. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public per RSA 91A:3D, consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real property.
I make a motion to do that.
Motion by Diane,
I'll second it.
seconded by Harry. Roll call vote goes into non-public.
Matt?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Diane, yes? Jason, yes?
Aye.
Joan?
yes.
Yes,
Fred? Kevin?
okay.
Motion
I will
passes,
step out of the room. I want to speak to the young man over there.
motion passes 700. At this point in time, this concludes our meeting for this evening. We're only gonna come out of non-public to adjourn the meeting, so with that, good night, Litchfield.
Good night, Litchfield. Don't forget to call me about that garden.
You got her number, the whole town has her number now. They had it anyway. Good night.
It's on the wall in Romano's.
You know a good electric?